1905, Bern, Switzerland. A 26-year-old man sits at a desk. It is not a university office. It is not a laboratory. It is a patent clerk's apartment, 3rd floor, rented furniture. He has been rejected by every professor he applied to work under. His doctoral dissertation was sent back as too speculative. His colleagues call him lazy. His own father wrote a letter to a famous scientist, asking, begging, for someone to give his son a job. The scientist never wrote back. That same year, this rejected clerk publishes 4 scientific papers. 4. Each one more impossible than the last. One explains why the sky is blue. One proves atoms exist, when scientists were still debating whether they were real. One invents the equation that will eventually birth the atomic age. And one paper, destroys 200 years of physics. In a single year, working a day job, with no laboratory, no funding, no title. His name was Albert Einstein. And this is the story of the most dangerous outsider who ever lived. If they did, you can too. Let's go back further. To understand what Einstein disrupted, you have to understand what he was up against. 1890. The scientific establishment of Europe is the most powerful intellectual institution in human history. At its centre, the great German universities: Berlin, Göttingen, Munich. These men, and they were almost entirely men, believed they had nearly finished the job. Isaac Newton had given them the laws of motion in 1687. James Clerk Maxwell had unified electricity and magnetism in 1865. Physics, they said, was essentially complete. This was the world Albert Einstein was born into, a world that had already decided the answers, a world that had very little patience for questions. 1879. Ulm, Germany. A Jewish family welcomes a son. Albert Einstein arrives into a world that will spend the next 40 years trying to silence him. He is a strange child by every account. He doesn't speak until he is nearly 3 years old. His parents fear something is wrong. When he does speak, he is relentless. Questions. Always questions. Why does a compass needle always point north? Why does light travel in waves? What would it feel like to ride alongside a beam of light? His teachers find him exhausting. At the Luitpold Gymnasium in Munich, one teacher tells him directly, "Einstein, you will never amount to anything." He is 15 when his family moves to Italy. He is left behind to finish school. He hates it so much he gets a doctor to write him a note saying he is having a nervous breakdown. He leaves school without a diploma. He tries to enter the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich, one of Europe's finest technical universities. He fails the entrance exam. Not in mathematics, not in physics, in French and botany. He graduates 4 years later. He applies to every professor he can find for a position as an academic assistant. Every single one turns him down. His classmates, less distinguished, less brilliant, they all find positions. Albert Einstein cannot find work. His father, Hermann, writes to Wilhelm Ostwald, a famous chemist, a Nobel Prize winner in waiting, begging him to give Albert a job, or even just a word of encouragement. Ostwald doesn't write back. Hermann Einstein dies 2 years later, never knowing his son would become the most famous scientist who ever lived. So, in 1902, Albert Einstein takes the only job he can find. A junior patent examiner, level 3, at the Federal Office for Intellectual Property in Bern, Switzerland. Salary, 3,500 Swiss francs a year. His job? To read other people's inventions and decide if they were original. The establishment had spoken. Einstein was finished before he started. Or so, they thought. Before we meet the Disruptors, if this story is already making you think about your own Tuesday afternoons, your own stolen hours of work, hit subscribe. Every week we bring you another story of how humans changed the world from the outside. If they did, you can too. Now, let's talk about 1905. 1905 is now known in physics as Annus Mirabilis, the miracle year. In the span of 12 months, while working full-time at a patent office, Albert Einstein submits 5 papers to the journal Annalen der Physik. Let's understand what each one was. Because each one was a bomb. Paper 1, The Photoelectric Effect, March 1905. Einstein proposes that light is not a continuous wave, as Maxwell proved, but travels in discrete packets of energy, what he calls light quanta, what we now call photons. This is the paper that eventually wins him the Nobel Prize. It is also the paper that launches quantum mechanics, the science that makes every computer, every smartphone, every laser on Earth possible. His colleagues think he has lost his mind. Light is a wave. Everyone knows this. Maxwell proved it. It cannot also be a particle. Einstein submits it anyway. Paper 2, Brownian motion, April 1905. A botanist named Robert Brown noticed in 1827 that pollen grains in water move in tiny, erratic, random patterns. Nobody knew why. Einstein writes a paper proving mathematically that this motion is caused by individual water molecules, invisible, undetectable, constantly crashing into the pollen. He doesn't just propose this, he calculates it precisely. He gives the exact size of water molecules. This paper, more than any other, proves that atoms are real, not theoretical. Real. In his spare time. Paper 3, Special Relativity, June 1905. This is the bomb. A 30-page paper with no footnotes, no citations, no references to any previous research. Just thought. Pure, uncompromising, terrifying thought. Einstein starts with 2 simple premises. 1. The laws of physics are the same everywhere in the universe, regardless of how fast you're moving. 2. The speed of light is always the same, 300,000 kilometers per second, regardless of how fast you or the light source is moving. From just those 2 premises, he derives consequences that shatter reality as 1905 knew it. Time slows down as you move faster. Objects get shorter as they approach the speed of light. Mass and energy are the same thing. Newton's universe, the clockwork universe, the predictable universe, the universe every physicist had built their career on for 200 years, was wrong. Not approximately wrong. Fundamentally wrong. Paper 4, Mass-Energy Equivalence, September 1905. A 3-page follow-up to the Relativity paper. Almost an afterthought. Almost. E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. The most famous equation in human history. He sends the paper to the journal on a Tuesday afternoon. He goes back to the patent office Wednesday morning. 4 papers, 1 year, no laboratory, no title, no support. The question is, what happened next? The answer is, almost nothing.
He waits.
For months, he hears almost nothing. The physics establishment is not celebrating. It is confused. It is skeptical. It is, in many cases, insulted. Max Planck, one of the giants of physics, writes to him carefully, gently. He is impressed. He has questions. But for most of the establishment, silence. Einstein is still a patent clerk. And then, slowly, something shifts. A young physicist named Max von Laue travels to Bern specifically to meet the author of this extraordinary paper. He expects a professor, a grand office, a man surrounded by students and instruments. He finds a young man in a small apartment, holding a baby, surrounded by stacks of paper. He almost walks back out, thinking he has the wrong address. He doesn't. He sits down. They talk for 2 hours. Von Laue later says it is the most extraordinary conversation of his life. But the disruption comes at a cost. The years of rejection, of invisibility, of being told he is wrong, they take a toll on everything around him. His marriage to Mileva fractures under the pressure. Mileva, who many historians believe contributed ideas, calculations, and scrutiny to his early work, receives no credit, no acknowledgement, nothing. She will later say she sacrificed her own scientific career, her own brilliance, at the altar of his. This is not a heroic chapter of the story. Einstein the scientist was extraordinary. Einstein the husband, the father, in these early years, he was not. Mileva marriage. Einstein deserves to be remembered, not just as Einstein's wife, but as a physicist who was erased by the same world that took its time recognizing her husband. 1919, 14 years after the miracle year. A British astronomer named Arthur Eddington sails to the island of Principe, off the coast of West Africa. He has one mission. Einstein's general theory of relativity, published in 1915, makes a prediction. Gravity, Einstein says, is not a force. It is the curvature of space-time itself. Massive objects, stars, planets, bend the fabric of space and time around them. And if that is true, then light should bend when it passes near a massive object like the sun. Eddington is going to photograph stars near the edge of the sun during a total solar eclipse, the only moment you can see stars near the sun, and check whether they appear to be in the position Einstein's equations predict. The eclipse lasts 6 minutes. Eddington gets his photographs. He measures. The stars are exactly where Einstein said they would be. Not Newton's prediction, Einstein's. On November 6, 1919, the President of the Royal Society stands before the greatest assembly of British scientists and announces, "This is the most important result obtained in connection with the theory of gravity since Newton's day." Newton's universe, the clockwork universe, that had governed physics for 232 years, is superseded. The headlines the next day read, "Revolution in Science, New Theory of the Universe, Newtonian Ideas Overthrown." Albert Einstein becomes, overnight, the most famous scientist in the world. Let the numbers speak. Before Einstein, physics had been essentially unchanged for 200 years. After Einstein, within 50 years, his work enables nuclear power, nuclear medicine, GPS satellites, lasers, semiconductors, the transistor, the computer, the internet. The screen you are watching this on right now exists in part because of what one patent clerk did on his Tuesday afternoons in Bern in 1905. He wins the Nobel Prize in 1921. Not for relativity, the committee still finds that too radical. For the photoelectric effect. And then comes 1933. Adolf Hitler rises to power in Germany. Within weeks, Einstein's work is officially classified as Jewish physics, a term of contempt invented to discredit him. His books are burned. His property is confiscated. A Nazi publication prints a list of enemies of the German state. Einstein's name is at the top. Next to his name, a photograph, a bounty. Not yet hanged. He never returns to Germany. He never sees his home again. He takes a position at the newly founded Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. He lives there until his death in 1955. And even in exile, even stripped of home and country and safety, he keeps working. He keeps asking questions. He keeps disrupting. Pause here for a second. I want to ask you something real. What have you been told you're too much of? Too intense? Too obsessive? Too focused on the wrong things? What has the establishment in your field told you doesn't matter? Drop it in the comments, because I want to see it, and I want you to see how many others feel exactly the same way. Because here's what Einstein knew that they didn't. The ones who can't stop thinking about something, they're not the problem. They're the answer. Now, let's talk about what this means for you today. So, what do we actually take from Einstein? Not the mythology, the reality. Lesson 1. The outsider sees what the insider cannot. Einstein solved the problem of light and motion because he was not a professional physicist. He had not been trained to accept the existing answers. He had not spent 10 years building his career on Newtonian mechanics, which meant he had no career to protect if Newton turned out to be wrong. His outsider position, the thing that humiliated him, that closed every door, was precisely the reason he could see what nobody else could. Every field has settled answers, sacred cows, things we stopped questioning. The next disruption will come from someone who didn't get the memo. Maybe that's you. Lesson 2. Your Tuesday afternoons are enough. Einstein did not need a laboratory. He did not need a budget. He needed time, small pockets of protected time, and a mind that refused to stop. Most people are waiting for the right conditions, the right job, the right title, the right moment. Einstein had a baby, a day job, a tight apartment, and a wife he was failing. He worked a fact. He worked anyway. What are you doing with your Tuesday afternoons? Lesson 3. Thought is a tool. In an era of enormous laboratories and expensive instruments, Einstein's most powerful tool was free. He imagined. He pictured himself riding alongside light. He asked, "What would I see?" You don't need resources you don't have. You need the question you haven't stopped asking. Lesson 4. The silence is not rejection. It is gestation. 1905 to 1919. 14 years between the papers and the eclipse. 14 years of the world not knowing what to do with what he had given it. Einstein kept working. He didn't go back to safe physics. He didn't recant. He trusted the work, before the world was ready to. If your breakthrough is real, if you have actually seen something true, the world will catch up. The question is whether you will still be there when it does. This is the History Disruptors. Albert Einstein was told at 15 he would never amount to anything. He was told his papers were too short, too speculative, too radical. He was told he was lazy, difficult, dangerous. He was exiled from his own country. His books were burned. His name was put on a list of enemies of the state. And from a rented apartment in Bern, Switzerland, working Tuesday afternoons, asking one question he had been carrying since he was 16, he rewrote reality. Not some of it, all of it. The GPS in your phone works because engineers had to correct for the time dilation Einstein predicted. The nuclear medicine that scanned your body, or someone you love, exists because of E equals mc squared. The laser that reads the barcode at the supermarket, quantum mechanics, which Einstein's photon paper launched. He is in your pocket. He is in your hospital. He is in your sky. From a man they called dangerous. From a man they tried to erase. From a patent clerk on a Tuesday afternoon. If they did, you can too.